Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time of the day you're watching this podcast series. This podcast series we call Race, Culture, and the Church. Race, Culture, and the Church. And this series started about 1 week after the murder of George Floyd. And I invite you to go through the archives and explore the different subjects and the luminaries, that I like to say, that have come into this space and shared their perspective on either race, culture, or church. And again, as I like to share, it's like a Venn diagram where you have the circles of race, circle of culture, circle of church. And we'd like to intersect at least 2 out of the 3, and sometimes 3 out of the 3. But we definitely want to explore issues of race, culture, and church. And I am pleased to have back with us for a second time, Nick Anderson. Nick, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure. Looking through your bio that's on your website, Bright Coast Productions, I'm easily amused, but your subtitle right after your name is director, filmmaker, storyteller. That's an awesome trifecta, and I love the fact that it's a storytelling aspect, that you are telling a story. So, Bright Coast Productions, you started that in you graduated in 2006 from Chapman. When did Bright Coast become Bright Coast?
I think around 2013 might have been when the company actually started. And that was basically, I had a business partner before who we did a lot of like drone and aerial photography. Even before drones were popular, we would strap little cameras to biplanes and fly them around. So that was part of our niche. And so he moved down to LA and I kind of stayed up here and started Bright Coast on my own. And so that was kind of how that came to being.
Given the arc of media and just things, life, how has that been since 2013 to 2025? What have you seen? What has surprised you or not in the production, in the industry you're in?
I've been very lucky. I think I was questioning, having graduated in 2006, I worked down in LA and kind of ran Warner Brothers till about 2008, 2009, and was having a great time doing that. And I was a little concerned being able to sustain that up in Sacramento. And so when I first moved up here, I had another job. And then 2013, started doing this full time and been extremely lucky to be able to sustain myself. And so I think that's been kind of a nice surprise, is I've been able to work in mostly documentary, commercial work. I've been doing my own short narrative films. Mm-hmm. And then from learning from those productions, kind of seeing documentaries, go into distribution and seek audiences and have success, I've now just finished my first feature length myself.
So I saw, if I'm not mistaken, I saw on your site, you do commercials as vocationally. I mean, you will produce commercials. I don't know why it surprised me, but again, with a commercial, you're telling a story by my product. Just share. I'm just curious about that aspect of what you do in 30 or 60 seconds of telling a story about something. You really got to cut to the chase and really hone in on what the message is and grab attention and really move the audience, whoever that audience is, to action in a commercial form. And we'll get to the documentary in a second, but I think this is a lead up, in some ways. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking about nothing, and maybe there's something there.
No, absolutely. I think, especially due to the nature of Sacramento not having as many studios and sets, I have done commercials with actors, but primarily I'm doing commercials featuring the business owners, featuring people who work in that industry in the commercials, and so that's been really great. So often I go in and I'll get to explore someone's history, their bio, kind of like you research me. I'll research the company and find out all the information about them. Do interviews with them ahead of time and kind of find out, what about your story is compelling. We'll kind of design a campaign around that, often work with a marketing team to figure out, what the right message or call to action is, and then, create the film from there. And that's often great. Then I get to go out and meet the people. And I kind of specialize. I think it helps my documentary work that I specialize in working with business owners who maybe never been on camera before, or talking to their employees who've never been on camera before, and working with them to feel comfortable and, more importantly, be authentic.
So you said you work with marketing. Do you construct or obviously you're recording the message. Are you creating the message in the sense that this is what needs to be said and this is how it needs to be said? Do you have that liberty, or is it, well, marketing says do this, we're going to do that, and I'll give you that product, whether or not I think it's the product you should have?
Just due to the nature of the industry these days, you'll kind of take whatever work comes your way. And so sometimes I'm being hired by ad agencies or marketing firms where they have designed the campaign. And I'm coming in from more of a, directing the visuals or hiring the crew, kind of running the production. When I'm not in Sacramento, I get to kind of be a bigger fish in a small pond and get to be the director producer. Often I do a lot of work as an audio engineer, recording, in the Bay Area or Los Angeles. And so it depends on the client. But up here, a lot of times I'll get hired by a company that wants to go direct to market themselves. And so when I was saying working with a marketing group, I'm more thinking about who's going to put the film. Is it going to be on Facebook? In which case, maybe it doesn't need to be exactly 30 seconds. If it's going to be, if we're buying ad time with Comcast or a local ad agency, what are the demographics we need to aim the product or the commercial for? And so often I'm kind of trying to assess those things before I design the campaign, because the last thing you want to do is find out that you wrote a script that doesn't work or you're on set having to pivot.
So when you, with your experience, again, I hear what you're saying. With your experience, what have you seen of late? I mean, what's the word on the street? What is the buzz that? What is getting the eyeballs and ears of folks? What is that thing? Because there's again, you're in the milieu, you're in the stew, so to speak, and there's tremendous competition for your attention. And you're a husband, you're a father, you've got a lot of life going on. You don't have a lot of time to listen to someone talk about, I have the best coffee or I have the best steaks. What's going to grab the attention? What have you found? Are you catering to an audience that already cares? Are you creating an awareness and a caring in what you do?
It's kind of on a per product basis. So sometimes I'm doing a video for an event. And so the goal of the campaign is click to buy a ticket or, click to engage, click to come and find out more information about our event. Sometimes it's introducing a new product. We have a startup company and I got to work for a medical company that was introducing a new product to the world. And so that case, we're having to explain what the product is and what it does. Sometimes I'm doing B2B stuff where it's internal business to another business product. So I'm
glad you explained that B2B. That's okay. Yeah.
So that's just like one business marketing to another business, right? So in this case, I did like one about server farms. And so most of the information I was talking about or had the voiceover for, I honestly didn't understand. I had to work really well with the tech people there to be like, oh, these are the very specific things that they want to hear and that they're looking for that makes their server group different than another competitor. And so it kind of depends on the video and what the goal is of that campaign. So that's why I'm kind of always working with someone in marketing. So I'm more of a filmmaker and a storyteller. And so I'm going to help humanize the product, create something compelling, find compelling language and compelling visuals to work alongside with whatever the goal is of that video. But often the goal isn't always determined by myself. Normally I'm getting approached by someone who has a product they want to get out in the world or has an event they want to market. And so based off of that goal, I'll come in and design a campaign.
Well, I guess it's all a kind of a tee up for what I'm want to pivot to now. You've been working on a documentary, The Right to Exist, subtitle, Inside Camp Resolution and the Housing Crisis, and it's specific to Sacramento. You've been engaged in this project for how long now?
I want to say we started in summer of 2023.
Okay.
And it took a little while to get our funding and everything put together. So we were very lucky to get a grant to kind of get the project started. And then from there received other support and in-kind donations from both filmmaking and local production companies. And I would say this film would not have been possible with a lot of outside support to make it happen. And I would say around the fall of 2023, I was introduced to Camp Resolution, which then became the subject of our story. But originally I was setting out to make a film where I followed, because I made a previous short film on homelessness, I was like, oh, there's all these myths I want to bust. And so I was looking for a number of academics and, kind of experts to come in and bust these myths, and then find examples of people living that life on the street that I could follow. And so Camp Resolution was originally just kind of a success story. It was looking at a self-governed camp that had a lease from the city that was doing things differently. And Arturo Biocchi from Sac State was someone I interviewed in my short film, and I brought him in as kind of a advisor, and now he's mentioned on the film as a producer, to kind of guide me through, what things did I miss in the short? What could I do better in a feature? And so he introduced me to Camp Resolution and was like, I think this might be something worth exploring. And he was doing a study with a number of the kids from his class he teaches at Sac State who were doing their thesis on the camp, and interviewed subjects there. And so originally I was just kind of following it as this unique example, but I was trying to follow a number of other stories. And then as the camp as their lease became challenged, I began to follow their fight to keep it alive and keep the camp open.
The short was what, about 10 minutes in length?
About 20 minutes, The Invisible Homeless.
20 minutes. And the full documentary is?
Around 92 minutes right now.
Okay.
We just cut about 4 minutes last night, trying to really keep it as tight as we can.
Okay, and I'm sure you're pleased with the final product. With the professor from Sac State and others that you've been working with, what have you learned from the short, and how, if at all, has a documentary changed, or has it changed, or is it just expanded, or what?
It changed a lot. So a lot of times I would take the short film out there, and the short film was really niche. I worked with Ian Lee of Jolie Media locally to produce that, and it was a great experience. But it was really focused on women and children, and kind of this idea that there are people who are experiencing homelessness who are hiding from plain sight, and let's feature their stories and focus on them. And then I would go to these Q&As, and people would raise these other questions about the general homeless population. And there was a lot of information I did not know when I made that short film that I was kind of learning as we went.
Like?
Just like stats around mental illness and drug use, stats around employment, stats around disability, just kind of information where you'd go to these Q&As and someone would say, well, they're all on drugs. And I'd be like, well, actually, they just finished the largest study on homelessness in the last 20 years, and it's saying it's only about 30% of the population is actually having some sort of chronic drug use. And so, there's things like that I'm trying to get across in the feature film. I call it my myth-busting section. And so, I thought that was really important to communicate. And it wasn't, it's so nice to have, national experts featured in the film. We have, the film is focused on this story of Camp Resolution in Sacramento, but we have an expert from UCSF, Margot Kushel, who's, she had to pause one of our interviews with her because she was on with the U.S. Senate. And so we have really these amazing experts. Andrew Henning is another author of the book, If You Want to End Homelessness, Start Here. And so we have a bunch of really great minds in this film explaining why these myths aren't true and giving you the data. And all the data is fairly recent. I think our oldest studies that we feature in the film are from 2023. And so I'm trying to kind of get that information out there and help people both understand, and then by their understanding, create empathy, and also a call to action through the film.
So there is a call to action at the conclusion of the film. It's I'm thinking of like a therapist where you've gone through therapy and you've been exposed, so to speak, but are you put back together and pointed in a direction?
A little bit, because the landscape for homelessness is changing so rapidly. They just had new information at the city council meeting last night, coming out for how Sacramento is dealing with homelessness. And so because that is always changing so rapidly, the call to action in the film is to care more and get more involved, and that success happens when people come together, when you stop fighting about whose problem this is, whose responsibility it is, and say, how about it's our responsibility to care for our society? How about it's our responsibility to create the world we want to live in? And so I think it's about everyone coming together and taking ownership of whatever problem we're facing. And I think the subject is about homelessness, but I think that same energy needs to be applied to whatever you want to look at, whatever problem in the world you want to solve, whether it's income inequality, environmental causes, political will. I think that sort of coming together and making an effort and caring is kind of the call to action. And then I'm hoping to have a website down the road that'll have more specifics of how you can get involved. But because that's changing so rapidly, I'd like to have something I can update. It's very hard to update the ending of a film.
So you have breaking news, I'm guessing, City Council from, this is a Wednesday, so you have breaking news from Tuesday. But what you just described in terms of, from 30,000 foot level, I would say 99.9%, I'll just say 100% of the people would agree. Yeah, those are lofty ideas and aspirations. It's wonderful. Translate that into actionable steps. That's where, and I'm not necessarily asking you to do that. You're the documentary guy. You're not the do it guy. You're not the politician. You're just kind of like Joe Friday and Dragnet, just the facts, ma'am. All I'm doing is presenting the information. But in that presentation of the information, everyone might assent and say, "Man, you're right. Okay, all right. Next issue." Nothing changes.
Ideally, if I do my job right, in addition to presenting the facts, you also are presenting them the beauty of editing and filmmaking is that you get to, being a storyteller is to take people on an emotional journey. And ideally, they feel something at the end. I remember watching The Cove, the documentary about the dolphins that were being, slaughtered. And I remember it was the first film where I after watching it, I donated money right away. And I was like, oh, I have to be able to impact people like that, where you feel so moved by the film you just watched that you have to take some sort of action. And not that everyone has to donate money. I think there's a number of different actions you can take, but it's about having that willpower to do something, to get up and start a conversation, to go volunteer, to share the film with others. There's a bunch of things you can do. And I think right now there's so much information coming at you from the world. It's hard to choose. You just get overwhelmed with it, and it can be overwhelming. And so I think having someone say, "Hey, here are a number of actions you can take that will make the situation better." Pick one thing you can do is very useful. And so I'm hoping to have a website, for the film that'll have supporting, hey, here's 20 nonprofits in your area you can go out and volunteer with. Here are, issues you can vote on. Here are other, things you can do to make an impact. And so I'm hoping to have supporting materials to that regard.
So given what you've done, given what you've heard, even on yesterday at council, are you more, less, or about the same level of optimism or hopefulness in terms of dealing with the issue of homelessness?
I think it's been a very rough last 12 months since we kind of finished making the film. Things have not gotten better, both in the policy and political landscape, but also kind of on the streets. Like the reality of being unhoused right now has really been difficult for those. I think we're kind of moving more toward criminalization of people who are poor and homeless, and we're moving more toward criminalization of people who who don't fit the model of the resources we all want to offer. And so I have someone in the film who used to work for the city who points out, hey, very few people are denying services if they are the services they're asking for, but often the services that are being offered don't fit that person's life. And people aren't one size fits all. And so you have to offer a wide variety of things to help individuals. And the narrower you make the path they have to walk, the more difficult, the more people you're going to not be able to help.
Seems like, and again, it's just appearances and who am I, but it seems like as I challenge different ones that have come into this space and talked on this issue, there's been an incredible rise on, the level of frustration, lack of empathy. I know it's a big issue. I can't deal with it. I've got issues. I've got life to deal with. I don't want to see a camp on my block. I don't want to see, again, it might be anecdotal, but I don't want to even see anyone in need of mental services, shooting up or whatever. Just get rid of the problem. Get it out of my visual sight. To wit, a few weeks ago, City Council said now it's illegal to camp out at City Hall. I won't even make any judgment on should or should not, but that is definitely under the heading of playing whack-a-mole. We're not dealing with the issue, we're just moving the issue away. So it's not a visual or an immediate issue for me. Again, I'll ask the question, are you hopeful?
Yeah, there's so many layers to that. What you're talking about right now is different. I am a shockingly hopeful person. I think part of being a director and being on set and kind of keeping the energy up and having, I like to make films that get made, that get finished. And I think
that have a happy ending at the end.
Yeah,
and, all the issues of life are dealt with and you can move on to the next episode.
Well, I've got young kids. It's very hard to look at the world and not feel hopeful about the things you see out in the world. I like people. I like the world that I've grown up in. I'm hopeful for the future. However, things like these policies, I think if you're looking at specifically the subject matter of homelessness and how we're dealing with it right now in this country, I think it's hard to say we are heading in the right direction. And so I hope, as far as being hopeful, that people will see the film and feel drawn to help change things. I think we need to change the direction. I think we need to feel more empathy. I think it's absolutely fine to feel frustrated and to feel exhausted with the situation. But I think it has to be like, I'm over 40. If I don't want to, I got to exercise. If I don't want to gain weight and I want to stay in shape and feel healthy. And so I think it's kind of the same way for society. If you want to have a healthy society and have a society you feel good about, you're going to have to do something. You cannot just sit there, and the more you put it out of sight, out of mind, the more dangerous that can be for the long-term results.
It's interesting you use that analogy or metaphor as an example, but that's why those ab rollers and things sell well. It's like, I want the quick fix for $9.99. Give me that. I can go from chubby to slim for $9.99. It'll only take me a couple of minutes every day. I'll buy that. And I know, and I think all of us know at a deep cerebral level, that's probably not going to do what needs to be done. But I'm not sure we're trying to convince ourselves, or we actually are believing in the equivalent of the Easter Bunny because it's easy.
Yeah, I think that is the danger, right? It is taking the easy way out. And I think that's something, and you need a lot of options. You cannot, I think the other thing is you need to be able to try different things. There's often, I think, a frustration with government or public officials where if they try something and it doesn't work, there's kind of anger directed at that. And I think that's the wrong approach for something like homelessness, which is probably the worst it's ever been right now. As far as I know, it's the worst it's been in this country. And I think when you have situations like that, you need to be able to try something and fail and pivot and try something differently or learn from your mistakes. And so I think you need that sustained energy, that sustained willpower to actually have an impact on these issues. And so I think that's going to take a lot of care, a lot of support, and people willing to see things fail and say, okay, but we learned, we have these takeaways from that. We can do better. We can, we put a Band-Aid on it, but now we can figure out a deeper way to fix the problem.
Have you included in the documentary, which I haven't seen, I will see it, or in your research, have you seen areas or attempts at dealing with the issue have been successful?
Oh, absolutely. The most famous one recently is there's been a huge effort to end veteran homelessness. And I think 3 states have eradicated it entirely. And a number of communities have been able to completely eliminate veteran homelessness. And that's because we have financial support for veteran services. And there's just much more support in that regard. And so I think there are a bunch of success stories out there for how to do this. That's a big, important takeaway from the film, is this is not a problem we don't know how to solve. There are a bunch of solutions out there that work. It's about doing the work the way it's described. I mentioned specifically described because a lot of times people will do 20% of the work or do a little bit of the attempt and not see the thing all the way through. And I think it's about doing the appropriate steps sustainably to have that sort of impact. But there are a bunch of success stories out there, and I think that's why you have to look at the models that are working and continue those. And if they don't work for your situation, figure out how to alter that. I know that the fix for Sacramento might be different than a fix for Seattle. Obviously, Los Angeles, I think, has 40,000, maybe higher, a number of homeless right now. And so they're going to need a very unique, plan to solve that problem. And so everyone's going to need different solutions for them. But there are really good success stories out there that you can follow and copy.
The percentage, again, I'm going to ask, do you know the percentage of veterans, non-veterans that are homeless? You said that's 3 states have all but eradicated it. What percentage of the population are vets?
I apologize, I don't have that stat right now. It's been going down like very much at a rapid pace since.
The only reason not the only reason. One reason I bring that up is like if veterans are 5% of the issue, then that's a very small percentage of the issue. Oh, we can pay for that. And veterans hold and rightfully so, a special soft spot in society's heart. Veterans should never be homeless. But you, on the other hand, you made some poor life choices. You're going to have to deal with it. Other question I would ask, aside from veterans, what percentage, what I have heard, is that either a preponderance or a significant percentage of the homeless population are single women and single women of color.
I don't have the stats for that, but it is very high. It is a lot of women out there who are suffering from this crisis, and I think what you see when it's women of color, and indigenous people as well. I think often what you find is that it is the people with robust support services
Correct.
and social networks who are able to sustain the kind of crisis that results in homelessness.
Correct. Whereas if you're one flat tire from being behind on your rent or whatever, all you have to do, one issue is to have dysfunction in the home that causes you to be homeless, and then very quickly you go from a house, an apartment, to a car, to being on the street. And just a few months ago, I was just like everybody else. And now, because of, as you said, a lack of a robust social and economic safety net, I find myself where I'm at.
Yeah, we've done a poor job as a society for having kind of a bottom tier for, we don't let you fall below this line.
Correct.
It seems to me when I see people on the street is like they are very much fending for themselves, and they are, if you lose your job and you don't have some sort of, savings or, a family member you can call upon or a friend you can call upon, we just let you fall through the cracks. And, the result is the street and maybe a tent and kind of scraping by for what you can get. And that's why, when people try to demonize people out there on the streets who are experiencing homelessness, I think it's like, these are people fighting for survival. It is extremely difficult to exist out there, hence the title of our film.
I saw someone, I have so many questions, but I saw someone yesterday as I was driving to whatever appointment I had going on. It was appeared to be an older African-American woman pushing a shopping cart, talking to herself. And my first thought was, who's going to minister or care for her? I condemn myself even in my thinking process, because who am I? Again, a part of a community of faith, an unapologetic member of a community of faith. But when you see, it's kind of like that old example that, you see a bajillion starfish washed up on the shore, and the child is just throwing in one back into the ocean and can't save all the starfish, but I can save that one. Mm-hmm. That's where I think we can, as a society, become not only overwhelmed, but if we're not careful, callous to the point. The issue is so big. Let me demonize or ignore or just push the problem away. It's too much. It's too much. There are too many other issues of life, of society, of the world that are going on right now. And I'm going to care about a woman pushing a shopping cart talking to herself. Nah, I don't have time.
I completely understand that sentiment, and I feel really bad about, the general public who have to see this problem, as far as I've been seeing it, get worse and worse and get less and less, or feel less and less hope as far as solving the problem.
Correct.
However, I think you got to save the one starfish. Like, that has to be the answer, is do something that makes it better, because trying to save 1 million starfish is impossible. But by saving one, you might find that experience was really rewarding, that it was easier than you thought, that the impact of doing that made you see how you could save 10 starfish. Maybe
Correct.
It's not just one. But I think taking those first steps is the only way we're going to make things better. And starting at an incremental level is really important. I don't think, if you try to tackle the whole problem, it is going to feel overwhelming. But if you try to find one person and help that one person, engage with them, have a conversation. One of the experts in our film talks about, of course you can make someone a sandwich, and that's great. Everyone, if you have time, make someone a sandwich, go hand that out. That's an impact. But if you really can, create a relationship with someone. Go deep, find a way that you can have an impact on their actual life. See if there's maybe they need a job, maybe they need help finding resources. And these are not easy problems to begin or to start the path going down. But it is that sort of energy that I think is going to really solve this in the long term.
100%. So you're taking, I'm thinking of the Doobie Brothers now, of all things. You're taking it to the streets. You're taking the production out into the community, and you're showcasing it. And shameless plug on our part, you're going to bring a viewing to our space this fall. Date to be determined. How many spaces, how many places do you hope I know, as many as you can. That's the answer. But between when and how many? What's your goal? What's your hope?
I'm trying to do as many this fall as possible. We're submitting to multiple film festivals to try to get the film recognized and get it into a larger distribution platform. So the goal will be to get it onto an Apple, a Netflix, a Peacock, a Hulu, something like that, as far as reaching a wider audience. Worst case scenario, and I love PBS, but worst case scenario, I think I could probably get the film on PBS. And so I think for me, it's about getting the most eyeballs I can in front of the film, not to make money off the film from that point of view, but really because of, I do a lot of films that are narratives and shorts and are fun to make, and that's my thing. This is a film where I feel much more like the steward of the content. It's much more like I am trying to get this story out there, help exposure for these people's voices, often unheard voices, help fix these misnomers I've heard about homelessness and these bust these myths that I've heard. And so I think for that I feel a responsibility, and so I want to get the film out there as from a wide audience as I possibly can. So of course I want to do local screenings, but right now I'm trying to do about 20 in the greater Sacramento area, both because this is a Sacramento story from its origin point of view, but also because I think I want to see reactions. We screened the film at Sac State about a week ago, and based off that I cut 4 minutes out of the talking heads. I was like, oh, people want to get back to the narrative, they want to get back into it. So we had a little bit too many stats that were repetitive. You don't need to hear from two experts these stats are true. Hear from one expert. Here's the data on screen. That's enough information. That argument has been positioned. And then let's get back to the actual story and the heart of the film. And so that was, by watching people watch the film, I learn a lot.
So at Sac State, the reaction was, let's get to the story. Let's cut out the fluff, if you will. Were there any other reactions that were, keen takeaways that, any aha moments, I guess, is what I'm really asking for.
Absolutely. One thing we're trying to do is add more stats to the film. We had stats already in the film, but we didn't have the animations going in. And so literally we're working on those right now, today. And so I'm hoping to have I think it breaks up. Hearing someone say a statistic is one thing, but having a nice animated graphic pop up on screen that kind of illustrates that. I had a number of people go like, oh, as those stats would come up on screen. And so I think just having those little, breaks from the person speaking is really helpful for an audience. The other thing I did was add a second here and there in transitional moments, almost like chapter breaks, but just giving the audience a moment to breathe after a subject is mentioned. And so sometimes it's because it's such an emotional moment, and it's like, oh, the audience needs a breath to take everything in and reset. And then sometimes it's, oh, we just vomited a lot of data and information at them. Let's give them a moment to take that all in. And so I added little breaks in the film with just nice footage, maybe some music, to kind of help the audience slow down. But then also cutting those 4 minutes to make the film more efficient at the same time.
Well, Nick Anderson, director, filmmaker, and storyteller, that you are doing incredible work. And again, it's both vocation, but it's clearly it's a passion. It's a calling that is compelling you to do what you do. Thank you for everything that you're doing. We stand ready, willing, and to the degree we are able to assist you in getting the story out. Definitely you are in our prayers. If there's anything City Church can do, if there's anything Mark Meeks can do, you let us know. But thank you, Nick, for all that you're doing.
Thank you. And likewise, just this podcast, your church, your community, everything you guys are doing is outstanding. And I really appreciate the ongoing dialogue we've had throughout the process of making this film. And thanks for having me today.
Thank you.